everybody, Johnny the Queer POTUS here, and with all this talk in the news about treason and impeachment, I thought it might be worth taking a look at our 10th president, John Tyler. He was the first to assume office after the death of a president, the first Congress attempted to impeach, and the only president to die a traitor to the United States. John Tyler was never supposed to be president. He was the vice president, and most people expected him to remain as such for the duration of William Henry Harrison's term. Little attention had ever actually been paid to this office, or what it was supposed to do, why have it in the first place. Our first vice president, John Adams, found being vice president to be a total bore.
My country has in its wisdom contrived to me the most insignificant office that ever the invention of man contrived or his imagination conceived. I am vice president.
Beta!
If barely any consideration was given to the duties of the office of vice president, even less was given to the question of who takes over when a president dies. The 12th Amendment said the duties of the president would devolve upon the vice in such a case, but for many, this meant that the vice president would merely act as a president until a new president could be chosen in a special election. When President Harrison died a month into office, Americans were forced to confront this question for the first time in their history. Within days, Tyler received a letter from Harrison's cabinet informing him of the president's death. After the initial shock, Tyler noticed the letter addressed him as John Tyler, Vice President of the United States. When Tyler arrived in Washington, he quickly took the oath of office in a D.C. hotel and gave a hasty inaugural address. Still hoping Tyler would take on an acting president role, Secretary of State Daniel Webster approached Tyler at the White House, inquiring whether Tyler would honor his predecessor's promise of putting all important decisions up to a cabinet vote. Tyler tore off the mask.
I am the president, and I shall be held responsible for my administration. I shall be pleased to avail myself to your counsel and advice, but I can never consent to being dictated as to what I shall or shall not do. When you think otherwise, your resignations will be accepted.
Grumblings about Tyler's usurpation of office continued, but to many, Tyler's swift action looked decisive, even presidential.
I can be more presidential than anybody.
Acceptance of Tyler's presidency settled in, though critics would still call him
His Excellency.
For his part, Tyler refused to answer any mail which didn't address him as President Tyler. But Tyler was still a man of mystery to many.
The people awoke to the fact that he whom they had elected as vice president and whom they only knew as Tyler too was to become president. Now, for the first time, the universal inquiry was anxiously made. Who is he? What sort of a man is he? Is he a thorough Whig?
Alas, Tyler was not a thorough Whig. Now, that's not really saying much. I mean, the Whig Party was politically all over the place. But in general, they united on the creation of a federally regulated national bank. The efforts to create said national bank had been consistently stopped dead in their tracks by Presidents Andrew Jackson and Martin Van Buren. But Jackson pissed off a lot more than just the pro-bank politicians. During the nullification crisis of 1832 to 1833, when a series of radical Southern politicians, led by John C. Calhoun, insisted states had the right to ignore any federal laws they deemed unfair, President Jackson took a hard line. Refusing to allow states the prerogative to nullify federal laws at will, Jackson called his enemies traitors and threatened to send the army. John Tyler, a genteel Southern planter and Democratic congressman for Virginia, sided with the South and made a very public switch over to the opposition Whig Party. The Whigs, excited by Tyler's public protest against Jackson, nominated him for vice president in 1840. Tyler may have shared the Whigs' hatred of Jackson, but he did not share their desire to create a national bank, as they would soon find out. After President Harrison died, the Whigs sprung into action, fast-tracking a bank bill through both houses in hopes that the flustered new president with a dubious claim to the office would fall in line and just sign the darn thing. But Tyler was not willing to play along, and he returned the bill to the Senate with a big fat veto on it. In a defiant message to Congress on August 16, 1841, Tyler said this:
"My own opinion has been uniformly proclaimed to be against the exercise of any such powers by this government. On all suitable occasions during my 25 years, the opinion thus entertained has been unreservedly expressed."
This was not a good sign for the Whigs. Some of them were so angry, they got together in a drunken mob and marched on the White House, carrying torches in their hands. They chanted and shouted under the portico for hours. Whigs thought these displays might have taught Tyler a lesson by now, and they quickly sent up another bill, hoping this time the weathered president would sign. Nevertheless, Tyler determined not to be the father of the First National Bank. When his second veto message was read to Congress on September 9th, the chamber erupted into a brawl. Senators leapt across the aisle to punch, choke, and kick each other until order was finally restored. Later in Baltimore, a convention of Whigs met to formally cast President Tyler out of the party. But the final blow came on September 11th, when all but one member of Tyler's cabinet resigned. Tyler was now a president without a party, without a cabinet, and to many, something much worse.
Tyler's name could be added to the list of other American traitors: Benedict Arnold, Isaac Hull, and Aaron Burr.
Tyler may have been his own man, but 80% of the American electorate had voted for Harrison and his pro-bank agenda. Instead, they were getting full-on right-wing Southern politics that made them long for the salad days of Andrew Jackson. Tyler's claim to the presidency was already dubious, but if he was going to rule as the exact opposite of the man who the country had voted for, was he not betraying the very spirit of free representative government? Sensing Tyler's weakness, the Whigs sent as many bills as they could to the president's desk, and with every Tyler veto came more accusations of treason and betrayal of the national interest. Some began looking toward an obscure section of Article 2 in the Constitution. The President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. In the minds of many Americans, Tyler's usurpation of power and misuse of the veto constituted just such a high crime. On June 22, 1842, a Whig representative from Tyler's home state was chosen to introduce the first ever proposal to impeach a United States president.
I charge him with a high crime and misdemeanor of endeavoring to excite a disorganizing and revolutionary spirit in the country by inviting a disregard of and disobedience to a law of Congress. If the power of impeachment is not exercised by the House in less than 6 months, 10,000 bayonets will gleam on Pennsylvania Avenue.
A committee was convened, headed by former President and now Massachusetts Congressman John Quincy Adams. The impeachment made for great headlines, but the political will ultimately was not there. The project was abandoned, but it left a scar on Tyler's presidency.
"I'm abused in Congress and out, as man never was before, assailed as a traitor and threatened with impeachment."
No politician in history, and I say this with great surety, has been treated worse or more unfairly.
Tyler made one final effort to salvage his tarnished image and win a term in his own right, in the form of attempting to annex the state of Texas. Now, I devoted my last video to that whole story, and if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you check it out. The long and the short of it is, Tyler failed to deliver Texas, which proved to be the nail in the coffin of his political career. Rejected by Washington and considered a traitor to his party, the accidental president returned to his newly purchased residence in Virginia, now renamed Sherwood Forest. Likening himself to the outlaw Robin Hood, Tyler faced nothing but scorn from his new neighbors, many of whom were Whigs. At a town meeting, when the lowly office of road surveyor was up for election, a few pranksters put Tyler's name on the ballot, and to their surprise, he was duly elected. Tyler embraced the position, proving a capable administrator, and his service won his neighbors over. Tyler's new job provoked a few laughs in the press, though.
Did not John Tyler, though a poor president, make a first-rate Virginia roadmaster?
It was during this time that Tyler, at 63 years old, had his last of 15 children, a boy named Lion Tyler. Lion was a chip off the old block himself, and had children well into his 70s. His last child, Harrison Tyler, was born in 1928, and is still alive today at 91 years old. If you go down to Sherwood Forest on the right day, you can actually meet John Tyler's grandson and shake his hand. The decades at Sherwood Forest were a happy retirement for Tyler, but in 1860, his idyllic country life was abruptly interrupted by the events of the Civil War. Tyler watched from his Virginia estate in 1860 as the election of Abraham Lincoln triggered the exit of one southern state after another. South Carolina, then Georgia, and by February 1861, 7 states in total. With Union troops mobilizing at Virginia's federal forts, it seemed likely to many, including Tyler, that Virginia would become the main theater for an upcoming Civil War. A convention was called to decide which way Virginia would go. Anxious not to lose the state which bordered the U.S. Capitol, then-President James Buchanan called on Tyler to help save Virginia.
Hello, Mr. President? Yes, sir. Glad to hear you.
Tyler agreed to lead a peace delegation to the upcoming Virginia Secession Convention in 1861 on behalf of the United States. Though he went to the Virginia Convention with the goodwill of Washington behind him, his heart was secretly with the South. On April 17, 1861, the home state of George Washington left the Union. It was a shocking blow for the rapidly disintegrating republic, compounded by the news that goodwill ambassador and former U.S. President John Tyler had voted for it. Once again, the maverick had blown up all expectations.
Virginia has severed her connections with the North Hive of abolitionists and takes her stand as a sovereign and independent state. A strong body of cavalry should be immediately sent to Washington to seize the capital.
As he'd stood with the South during the nullification crisis of 1832, so he would stand with the South now. Tyler was even elected to the Provisional Confederate Congress, and his visage adorned the newly printed Confederate currency. Congressman Daniel Barringer praised the president's dedication to the cause of the South.
President Tyler has had the great happiness accorded him of living to see himself fully appreciated. His old enemies are among his warmest friends.
Before long, Tyler's worst fears about Lincoln were realized as Union forces poured into Virginia. Tyler had to make a hasty escape before Union troops overran his Sherwood Forest estate, where they remained for the duration of the war. In the summer of 1862, Tyler died in a Richmond hotel. Lauded as a hero in the South, his body was laid in state in the rotunda of the Confederate Capitol, but Northern papers did not share in the grief.
John Tyler's put the finishing touch to the peculiar reputation he acquired while in the presidential chair. He was born a traitor, and this is by no means his first exhibition of the cloven foot.
It may be difficult to imagine an ex-president joining a rebellion to destroy their own country. But in John Tyler's case, this is precisely what happened. Looking back at Tyler's career, however, it doesn't seem so surprising after all. He was naturally suspicious of the federal government, and his unpleasant experience as its president only deepened his hatred for Washington politics. If Tyler couldn't find honor in serving his country as a leader, he would find it in founding a new nation. From Tyler's point of view, he acted to protect the sovereignty of the states from what he saw as a tyrannical and unconstitutional central government and its militaristic posturing against the South. But the eventual victory of the Union in 1865 and the emancipation of 4 million slaves leaves us looking back at our 10th president, not as a founding father, but as a flagrant traitor. Thanks everybody for listening in today. I want to remind you to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and if you haven't donated to my Patreon yet, please consider doing so. There are some links in the description telling you about some of the sources and books that I used to construct this episode. If you haven't seen my episode on Abel Upshur, the Grave Log, or any of my previous episodes, go ahead and binge, enjoy. I make them for myself, I make them for you, I make them for the world. Hope you're having an excellent week, and I hope you're as excited as I am to finally be breaking out the fall wardrobe. Happy October, friends.